What's good, people? What's good? What is good? Like the 4 people that watch my video. I may stop. Honestly, I think enjoying it. If I was getting more views, I'd continue. And but the thing is, the topics I like just simply are not the topics that people are concerned with a lot of the time. Like, just in terms of proportion, in terms of ratio, what I like is not what other people like, just simply in terms of ratio, as I can see from like the analytics of my channel. When I talk about girls or like women or something, that gets done. Like, I always see a spike in views every time I talk about like, but then when I try to talk about economics or like the economy or just even politics gets more, and politics, honestly, I like love politics to be honest, but even politics gets more than economics. And I just like talking about, because the things I like talking about, at least right now, is money. That's interesting. Also like birth rates and stuff like that. And the story that I have for this video kind of combines both of these things. But yeah, that's what. So unfortunately, and I don't want to just get here and talk about Landon and stuff, because that did get me a bunch of subscribers. But dude, I could like care less, man. Not care less. Like, not care less. That's not exactly what I want to come and talk about to you guys. If we only have so much time, I don't want to spend necessarily doing that. A bunch of people are concerned about that. I'm just typing UK pension prices. Yeah, it just is what it is. That taught me a lot about life in general. Or I mean, not even life in general, to kind of like more of this society. Here. Fuck it, let's go. What does Forbes India say? Let's just check out what Forbes India says. What's happening to UK's economy. By Liz Truss, Britain's new Prime Minister, to cut taxes and freeze energy bills landed like a bomb in the niche corner of financial markets, hitting the UK government bond prices so hard the Bank of England was compelled to intervene. Okay, that's interesting. That's actually pretty interesting. Plans by Liz Truss, Britain's Prime Minister, to cut taxes. That's same. Compelled the Bank of England was compelled to intervene, highlighting how obscure derivatives can still shake up the global financial system more than a decade after the 2008 financial crisis. Obscure derivatives, that's insane. On Wednesday alone, 30-year British government bonds swung more than they had for the past 5 years. Whoa, 30-year British government bonds swung more than they had in a full year for the past 5 years. On record in currency markets, the pound slumped to its lowest level on record against the US dollar, with moves of a magnitude comparable to the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. It's the most extreme market event that I've been involved in. Started working in finance just before the dot-com bubble burst in 2000. On Friday, the Chancellor of Exchequer, I don't know how to say that, Chancellor of Exchequer announced Britain's biggest tax cuts in the 1970s, predominantly for higher earners. The package also included a new cap on energy prices to help households. New cap on energy prices prices. Just reading my Thomas Sowell, apparently that's not good when you cap prices. But then, you know, if it was like, I don't know, what about the other way around? Interesting. To help households facing a winter fuel crisis, they cap prices. Investors had been bracing for the news, but the announcement was unexpectedly thin on details about how the government would finance its plan. Fears that the government would have to increase its borrowing pushed down the price on its existing debt and sank the value of the pound. Yeah, because dude, supply, demand, value. So if the supply of pounds goes up because they're printing so much, theoretically the demand goes down and the value goes down because they're printing so much. So people would be unloading government debt instead of buying it, which would suck for the government, because if they unload your debt, like if they don't want your debt and they unload it, there's more on the market, which increases the supply on the market, and then that decreases the value of the pound, which makes it hard to sell your new treasuries, which you want to sell those to get money to pay off the interest on the debt that you already have, like your already existing debt. So if people don't buy your treasuries and you're trying to unload them on the market, it's gonna decrease the value of your currency. Like that, and that sucks. And that's just like a cycle that just feeds on itself. So that's probably why people are scared. Because if that person doesn't want your bonds, then the other people are like, wait, why don't they want the bonds? And then everyone starts like doing their research. And then it's like, wait, so nobody wants the bonds of this country? And then they're like, wait, so if we can't sell these things, then how are we gonna pay off this month or this year's interest on like the debt that we already have? And that's interesting. And then if your economy just keeps getting worse because you're not having, like, people don't have kids or anything, so nobody's actually really supplying new services or creating new goods, and you have a whole society of people trying to collect, like, let's say they have pensions. Like, that's why I thought it was a pension crisis, because if these people have pensions now, how is the government gonna pay for people's pensions when people don't, like, if they can't sell government debt, if people don't want to buy that? And then on top of that, like, how many taxes are they going to collect if less people are working because people didn't have kids? That's just how that's how I see it. Prices move inversely to bond yields. Back to the article. Within 30 minutes of the British government's announcement, the yield on 30-year government bonds, also known as gilts, soared, moving more than it typically does in a full day. The market reaction ricocheted around the world, so prices move inversely to bond yields. The yield on 30-year government bonds soared. Wow. So what did they do within 30 minutes? Announced Britain's biggest tax cut since the 1970s. So within 30 minutes of the announcement of the tax cuts, the yield on 30-year bonds soared. Dang, so they said they're gonna cut taxes, and then the yield on the 30-year bonds soared. The yield on super long-term bonds soared when they said they were gonna cut taxes. That's interesting. Why would the yield soar when they say they're gonna cut taxes? That's interesting. So the government would have less revenue. So then they'd be issuing more bonds to gain revenue. And then why would the yield soar though? Why would like the yield soar? Because I understand why they would be issuing more bonds, but then why would the yield on that soar? That's interesting. So the market reaction ricocheted around the world. U.S. government bond yields also rose and stocks fell. Interesting. As turmoil increased, it exposed vulnerabilities in the financial system, although investors initially sold off bonds because of the uncertainty. That's interesting. Investors initially sold off bonds. Those moves caused upheavals among pension plans, exactly, amplifying the sell-off like a pile-up. Exactly. The pension fund business is seen as a solid, I don't know. So this says solid, but I think they mean solid part of the financial world. But because these funds manage so much money, their distress can affect wider markets. In particular, it was the $1.5 trillion defined benefit pension plan industry that came into focus this week. Defined benefit pension plan industry. These pensions, popular in the United Kingdom, pay a fixed sum linked to inflation to retirees in the future. Over the long term, interest rate swings can change the picture for pension funds. When interest rates rise, bond prices fall and pensions liabilities. So when interest rates rise, bond prices fall and pension liabilities, essentially the money they owe to retirees in the future, decrease in value. But when rates drop, the opposite happens. When interest rates drop, bond prices rise, which makes sense, and pension liabilities, the money owed to retirees in the future, would increase. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. The money owed would increase when interest rates drop because money is cheaper. Because borrowing increases. When rates drop, the opposite happens, so funds have to generate more cash going forward to cover their liabilities, which they usually borrow. To guard against that, or at least that's what it seems like to me, like they usually borrow. To guard against that risk, pension funds have increasingly turned to what's called liability-driven investment strategy, a way of using derivatives and other products linked to gilts, which is long-term government bonds, linked to gilts to hedge against a drop in interest rates, using derivatives and other products linked to gilts. That hedge against a drop in interest rates. That hedge against a drop in interest rates. That's interesting. Using derivatives and other products linked to long-term bonds. That hedge against a drop in interest rates. So if interest rates drop, those bonds get more valuable. If interest rates drop, yeah, the bonds get more valuable. And I don't know what the derivatives are, but the bonds get, so they're probably buying bonds. That's crazy. Using derivatives. Other products, they're probably buying bonds. I don't know what else they're doing in there, but they're probably buying bonds, like 30-year treasuries. Derivatives work by tying their value to that of an underlying asset, in this case the 30-year bonds, and they are cheaper to purchase than the underlying bonds. So they're derivatives of the bonds that are cheaper to purchase than the underlying bonds, so pensions can own more of them. That's what the UK pension funds did, building large positions that also made them more sensitive to changes in bond yields. Last Friday, after the UK government announced its plan to cut taxes, yields on the gilts, which are the 30-year bonds, shot up as prices fell. Asset managers that oversee the holdings of pension funds began asking them for more cash to cover the change in value. By the end of Monday, the yield on 30-year gilts had risen another zero point 0.5 percentage points, a huge move for an asset that usually moves in the low hundredths of a percentage point. Asset managers began to press pension funds to post collateral so they could cover the losses on the derivative contracts. The moves were so sharp that Bentley of Columbia Threadneedle, one of the largest asset managers that facilitates these trades for pension funds, said he alerted the Bank of England. We wanted to make sure it was crystal clear what we were seeing in the markets, he said. But pension funds, especially smaller ones, don't always move quickly. It can take them a couple weeks to sell assets, including stocks, corporate, and government bonds, to raise money for collateral. Managers were asking for collateral, but they couldn't wait 2 weeks. They said this was a 6-minute read, but this is hard shit. Said Dan Mikulski's a partner at LCP, which advises pension funds. They wanted it in 2 days or even sooner. That puts a lot of strain on the system. Then on Tuesday, asset managers, still waiting for collateral and running out of time, began to close out their trades, putting further pressure on the market because exiting such trades replicates the effect of selling more gilts, amplifying the sell-off. Columbia Threadneedle said it had to unwind a small amount of trades when clients were unable to come up with the cash needed to cover losses. BlackRock, another large asset manager for these pension funds, sent a memo to its clients Wednesday morning saying that for funds close to seeing their assets exhausted, they would close out the trades. Mercer, another asset manager, said it had locked 3 funds, preventing pension investors from adding or withdrawing their investments. Mercer cited the sudden deterioration of market conditions and the ensuing volatility in the gilt market for its move. This is what led to concern from folks like ourselves, said David Fogarty, a director of Rieda Trustees, which operates pension funds on behalf of its members. If a position is closed out, we no longer have the protection from a fall in bond yields. Asset managers pleaded with the Bank of England to intervene. By 11 a.m. Wednesday, they got their wish. The central bank pledged to buy government bonds at a rate of up to $5 billion a day. Holy shit. For the next 13 weekdays. $5 billion a day for the next 13 weekdays. So that's what? $65 billion in 2 weeks. In an attempt to restore proper market functioning. So they're like, okay, we're gonna buy all of these bonds now because people started unloading bonds because they were gonna cut taxes, which caused stock prices to fall and the bond yields to rise. So because the bond yields rose, people are trying to sell them so they can make money now because they had to pay back their debts from previous because they're afraid of interest rates rising. Dang, I think that's true. That's crazy to me. That's insane. That's crazy. I think I said that right. That's interesting. That's crazy, man. The decision scuttled plans to sell bonds that the bank had previously purchased as part of pandemic-era support for financial markets. It didn't take long for the markets to return to normal. Okay, the decision scuttled plans to sell bonds that the bank had previously purchased as part of pandemic-era support for financial markets. It didn't take long for the markets to return to normal. The yield on the 30-year gilt fell more than a percentage point on Wednesday As markets calmed, pension funds began to assess the damage. With the scale of the fallout still being calculated, the dramatic rise in yields initially benefited pensions because it reduced the value of their future liabilities. That's true, but the moves were so sharp and fast that pension funds didn't have time to adjust and post more collateral on their derivatives positions. Okay, that makes post more collateral on their derivatives positions, according to industry players. Until the dust settles and the LDI managers start to disclose all the activities taken on behalf of their clients, it will not be quite clear what the impacts have been at a plan level, Fogarty said. That's interesting. So that's the end of the article. I'll post it, I believe. Yeah, and that was October 3rd, 2022. This was a little bit ago. I was wondering, like, what happened. And I wasn't able to really research it because I had a job at that time. But that was interesting. But I saw the news, like, on my phone, and I was trying to read it at work, but I couldn't read it at work for obvious reasons. Or at least, I couldn't read an article that long and, like, try to make sense of it. But yeah, man, that's interesting. That's cool. So I just want to know. I guess I'm interested because I won't fully know. But I just it's just interesting what's going on with that economy. And I'm just trying to learn more, just learn more, just spend some time learning. Like, I don't really know what else to do with my time, man. And this is interesting to me. Obviously, there's a lot of things I could be doing, but like, this just happens to be interesting to me. And yeah, I'll keep posting if I get, because, if getting 4 views, I'll probably not post if I'm getting 4. So it is what it is. Like, I might stop, but I kind of don't really want to, so like the video, and I'll probably get less impressions now because I'm not going to put MGTOW on it anymore because that's just not really, I kind of wanted to attract those people, but to be honest, dude, I realized most of those people, like, they want, it's like, and I guess I do too, but like, I'm just not concerned with the women stuff right now. But like, so I can't just keep talking about it, man. Like, it is what it is, dude. And I'm not like against women or anything. Like I'm not against them. There's interesting things that, like, I can talk about, like, when it comes to the economy, but like, to be honest, that's kind of more of what I was going after. So like, and I'm not really gonna talk about, like, I suck at talking about those topics. Like, for more, I might do it once in a while on a video. Like, when I have an experience with, like, some girl who, like, maybe is my girlfriend, or like, we'll see what happens. But like, that's pretty much it, dude. Yeah. But yeah, that, like, I'll probably do on the economics for now, and then I'll try to put in some healthcare stuff. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's it for this one. I'm gonna pull up my Wonder Show from Laura so I can get that through the editor and then post that shit. And I'll call it good, man. That's the day. Listen to your Peter Schiff, listen to your Lynn Alden, listen to your Hugh Mundell for music, the prior two for economics, and then the Hugh Mundell for music. And then, yeah, man, if you like reggae. Yeah, okay, we're out of here, dude. Have a decent rest of your day, whenever you're watching this. Yeah, man, that's all I got for y'all. Alright, peace out.